you can do this with almost anything, whether you're doing some kind of art practice, painting or drawing or playing an instrument, singing. All right, here we go. This is part 1 in a 4-part series about how to practice basically anything. So my name is Puja Singh. You can call me Puja. My pronouns are they, them. And welcome back to my channel. And here we go. I hope this helps you in some way with whatever practice it is that you do. So for me, my main practices are singing, meditation, and yoga asana. Those are kind of the 3 main things that I do every single day. I've done them. I've done the same singing practice every day for almost 6 years now. And I've done some kind of meditation practice for almost a decade now. And also like some of the particular meditations that I do daily, I've done for like over 5 years now. So I just share that to say that I'm sharing this series from my own experience. Practice is such a huge part of my life in terms of spiritual practices, in terms of art practices, music practices, liberation practices, practices of community, practices of health and wellness and nourishing my body and mind and spirit. And so, yeah, I think practice is something that can and hopefully is relevant to most people in some way. So again, I'll kind of be speaking. I do practice a lot of different things kind of more sporadically, more randomly. I'll go through periods of practicing something that I get really into. But again, I'm really speaking, a lot of this experience that I'm speaking of is coming from my singing practices, my meditation practices, and my yoga practices. Actually, not just singing, but music practices, because I also play instruments. So I want to kind of touch on like 5 main points that I've come up with. I think these are things that I just find are really important, again, in any practice that I'm doing, and you can kind of modify them depending on what your practice is. And I want to say that too, that you can do this with almost anything, whether you're doing some kind of art practice, painting or drawing or playing an instrument, singing, making pottery, knitting, crocheting, and then some other things like gardening or cooking, even cleaning, kind of more things that we think of as being more mundane maybe, or sometimes are mundane, but hopefully we can kind of elevate them to a more special place or a special mundane place. So I would love for you, if you want to follow along with the series, I would love for you to choose something or maybe a couple things if you have the capacity to do that. But I would really try to focus on one thing in particular, maybe have like one main thing, and then if you want to have a secondary thing, you could do that as well. But kind of find your main thing that you want to practice throughout this series, and you can use that as your medium, and then you'll kind of work around that. So the first point is trying to find a consistent time and place that you can do your practice. Now, this will vary slightly for some things. For some practices, it might not be as important to have the same time and place. Other practices, it'll be really important. I find for a meditation practice, it just helps to create a certain kind of energetic space when you're in the same physical space and doing it at or at least around the same kind of time. So for meditation practice, a great way to start is by doing it in the morning. I have a few meditation practices that I do like first thing when I wake up, before I look at my phone, before I have chai, before I like check any emails or anything. And I will say, there are days where I do start to look at my phone a little bit before I, while I'm still laying in bed or something, but I try to do these things before I do any of those other things. So I wake up, brush my teeth, and come and sit, and then I do a few meditation practices. I do japamala, where I'm counting beads and saying a mantra, and then I also do some more silent practices. I have a couple other mantras that I chant without the mala as well. And so again, for you, you could do any kind of meditation practice. I have a couple meditations on my page, so if you want to use those, you can do that. You can find some other kind of guided meditation, or you can just do your own meditation without any kind of guidance. But if you can do it in the morning at a particular time, or just at least when you first wake up, because depending on whether you wake up at the same time or not every day, you could just do it when you wake up. That's a great way. You could do this with any practice too. Maybe if you have a writing practice or a drawing practice or something that doesn't take like a ton of effort to like set up and get started. But you can do that in the morning just to start your day. Even turning your morning coffee or tea into a practice. Maybe sitting in silence as you drink your coffee or your tea. That is a beautiful practice. And again, you could do that at any time of the day too, but that could be a nice way to start your morning. So again, this first point is having a consistent time and place for your practice and just sticking to this as much as you can. And with any of these kind of tips or guides that I'm giving you, using them to create a structure, and then also having at least a little bit of flexibility within that, and just being compassionate with yourself and do the best that you can. So with this, I also want to say, try and cut out any distractions. So like put your phone on do not disturb or silent. If you live with people or something, maybe tell them like, hey, I'm going to be doing this practice for 15 minutes or 20 minutes or however long it is. Please don't interrupt me for this time, and I'll be available after that. And then also, if you have any other things, if you have, I don't know, kids, or if you're expecting a package or something, like whatever it is, just kind of planning so that you can cut out as many distractions as possible. And again, also knowing that sometimes things will come up that are completely out of your control. So just being gentle with yourself and allowing that to become part of the practice. Okay. So the second point is to give yourself either a specific amount of time for this practice or give yourself a particular task. So sometimes giving yourself a specific amount of time is nice because it's kind of just like, you put a timer on and you do the practice for that amount of time. And then once the timer goes off, you can finish and be done and you can move on. Other times it's more about having a particular thing that you want to do. For example, if I'm doing a singing practice, sometimes I'll have a particular exercise that I'm working on that I'll be like, I need to sing this exercise until I can sing it, in time at a particular tempo and, I don't know, well enough to remember without having to look at, a piece of music or to look at something visual to know it. So you could give yourself little tasks like that. And then, because that might take longer. I don't know how long that's going to take for me to get that particular exercise. I might get it in 5 minutes. I might get it in 15 minutes. I might get it in 30 minutes, So if I set a timer in that case, I might kind of miss out on some of the juiciness that I could get out of the practice if I would have kind of been focusing more on that particular task. So again, you can choose. You could do either a specific amount of time or a particular task, or you could do both. You could do a particular task within a certain amount of time. So again, this for me just gives me a little bit more structure so that I don't feel like it's endless. I know kind of like this is my ending point, and then I can move on and do other things. Sometimes I think that's one of the hard things that people find about practicing something is that they're like, but I have too many other things to do. I have too many other priorities that just always seem to kind of creep ahead of the practice. So in that case, in this way, you can give yourself a specific amount of time or a specific task. And then once you're done that, then you're done. The third note is to make notes. So this can be as in-depth, as extensive, or as basic as you want. This could be internally, just kind of making notes in your mind about, just kind of acknowledging certain things about kind of maybe what you accomplished in your last practice or just in the past, kind of acknowledging your progress. It could be, again, just making notes about kind of where you're starting out today. If you're working on a particular piece or a particular exercise, or, you know, you're trying to finish a painting, or you want to plant a particular plant, or you want to, whatever it is, just kind of making notes. Again, this could be internally in your mind, mentally, or it could be something written down, writing by hand. Maybe you keep a practice journal where you make these notes. Maybe it's in your phone, in your notes on your phone. Maybe it's on your computer. Maybe you just draw pictures, or, you know, however you make records for yourself, however you kind of keep track of things, just to, again, to be aware of it for yourself. You can note where you're kind of coming from, where you're starting, if you have a particular goal or, you know, place you're trying to get to, you could note any of those things. And then after you finish the practice, again, just kind of making some notes, whether it's mentally or physically, making notes about maybe what you accomplished in the practice today, what you experienced, any insights or feedback that came up during the practice. Maybe you were doing something, an exercise that you've done many, many, many times, and you had some kind of insight about, oh, I've never experienced this particular thing in it before, or I've never done it in this particular way. But again, just making some kind of notes so that you can just have an idea about where you're coming from, where you're at, and where you're going. The fourth point is to focus, to, again, try and cut out distractions, really gather yourself, be as present as you can be in your practice. This is a huge part of practice. Whether you're doing like a meditation or some kind of mindfulness practice or not, I think a big part of practice is presence. How can you be as present with whatever it is that you're doing that you can possibly be? So again, however you do that, making sure that you're set up in a way where you have the supplies that you need, so you're not having to rush around and get things in the middle of your practice, making sure that you are comfortable, that you're set up in a way that feels supportive for you. So again, like if you have a particular chair you like to sit on, or a particular desk you like to work at, or just particular tools that you like to do that you know support you in your practice, make sure that you have those things ready when you begin, so that it's not something that you're having to figure out during the practice. And then with this, being focused and being present, also cultivating a sense of curiosity, being open to what your practice actually has to give you, to share with you, what your practice has for you. So often, again, especially if your practice is something that is a little bit more repetitive, if you're doing the same kinds of things regularly, or the same particular exercise over and over again, can you be curious? Can you be open to, again, any kind of feedback or information that you're getting through the practice? Because we can do a practice by, kind of automatically, by routine, by memory, and not really benefit from it if we're not being present, if we're not being curious, if we're not being open to what is being revealed, or what is being experienced, or what is being experienced. So yes, focus, be present, be curious, be open. This is all kind of one. And then the last one is to just begin. Just start your practice, just do it. Even if you don't have all the materials that you need, even if it doesn't feel like it's quite the right time, even if you're not in quite the right space, can you just begin? Can you just start, and can you just do it? Because sometimes that is the best thing you can do. Sometimes doing all this kind of preparation ends up being the thing that stops us from doing the practice, because we're so worried about making sure that we do it right, or making sure that we've, got everything that we need to do it. And you know what? Sometimes you just don't. Sometimes you just don't have everything you need. Sometimes you're just not prepared. Sometimes you're just not ready. Sometimes you just don't want to do it. And that's fine. That's normal. Again, a big part of practice, in my opinion, is learning to cultivate compassion for yourself, learning to find some kind of balance between discipline and freedom, finding some kind of balance between doing what you need to do in your practice and also knowing that things will not always go to plan. Things will not always go how you want or expect. So just showing up, just beginning, just doing the practice, just showing up and doing it. So these tips, guidelines, whatever you want to call them, are not necessarily in any particular order. I kind of just put them how they made sense to me, but you can kind of, if you wanted to rearrange them into a different order for the importance that they seem to you, that's totally fine. Please take these and test them out and see how they work and try them and come up with your own tips and guidelines for practice, for your own practice. And if you want to share them with me, with us in the comments, please do so. I would love to hear your thoughts. If you are actually following along with this series, I would love to hear about it. So if you have a particular thing that you're going to